Hi guys, welcome to episode 31 of Get Your Buzz On. I have my good friend over here. Introduce yourself, Dr. J.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mark Jabor, and I'm with Cosmetic Surgery and Laser Center of El Paso. I've been here in El Paso in private practice for 19 years.
So cheers, because you can't have alcohol, so I was like wanting to cheers you for we have water here.
We have water. Cheers with water.
Cheers with water. So tell us, how has everything been? Well, how was everything prior to COVID, and then during COVID you guys had to stop, and now everything going on now? What's been going on with you guys?
So prior to COVID, it was kind of a typical, normal year as it goes, and like any businesses, we kind of have peaks and valleys, but it was as good or better than the previous year, so everything was going as planned. And then once we had COVID hit, we had to shut down for a month, and that was by order of the governor, because they stopped all elective surgeries. So for a month, we really didn't see. We saw some post-operative patients in the office, but we really couldn't do any treatments, fillers, Botox, or surgery. So everything for us kind of went to a screeching halt. And that was basically from about March 21st to April 21st. And then we were able to start doing surgeries again. And, thank God, it's been actually much busier than anticipated.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think a lot of it has to do with many people are still working from home. So they're employed, and I hear them say when I get on these Zoom meetings, it kind of magnifies everything. And I'm like, I don't look how I look, so we will go ahead and want to do something at this point because you have time for recovery since you're staying at home. So it kind of makes sense to a lot of people.
Yeah.
This would be a good time.
Yeah, for sure. What are some of the top ones that you're seeing right now with everyone being home? Because I know if I see myself on a video, I'm like, ooh, bags, or like I have this, or you start seeing everything a lot more.
Well, we've been doing a lot of the facial surgery, like you mentioned, such as facelifts and eyelid surgery. So that's been pretty popular. We've also been doing, a pretty fair amount of body procedures, which would include liposuction, tummy tucks, and breast augmentations, lift, implant removals.
Oh, really?
Adding implants, yeah.
So what's your background? Tell us a little bit about where you went to school, how you got into plastic surgery.
So my background is that for undergraduate, I went to the University of Texas at El Paso, right here in El Paso. And then from there, I went to medical school at Texas Tech. And then from Texas Tech, I did a residency in New Orleans, which was 5 years. So that was actually 1 year of general surgery and 4 years of ear, nose, and throat. And from there, it was during the residency in the ear, nose, and throat I really became interested in plastic surgery. So I applied for another residency. So I got accepted to that residency, and I went to Houston and did that residency in plastic surgery.
That's crazy. So what made you decide not to do ear, nose, and throat then?
So what always interested me really most about ear, nose, and throat was kind of the overlap with the plastic surgery. The rhinoplasties and the facial trauma and the things that we would take. So, as I kind of got, further along, I'm like, boy, the things I really like to do are the plastic surgery portions of it. Why not just do that exclusively?
Yeah.
And so I said, how do I make that happen? The best way to make that happen was to do a plastic surgery residency, and that's what I did.
And then what made you come back to El Paso after all that?
It's a good question. I looked around other places. One of the draws was, my parents are here, and so it was nice to be, here and close by them, and later years. And then also, truly there seemed like it was a good opportunity, here. And looking back, it's been sort of an amazing ride over the 19 years.
That's crazy, 19 years.
So I know I only look like I'm probably 30.
Yeah, I'm like, come on now.
But it has been 19 years.
That's crazy. So what makes you so different from every other plastic surgeon in town?
Well, I don't know if it's that I'm so much different. I mean, in reality, the surgeries I perform are what everyone else probably performs. But what I myself and the office try to do is really focus on patient service, customer service, however you want to state it. Really the entire experience from the time they dial the number, or they send us a request for an email consultation, till the time they're done with surgery and post-ops, that the experience is exceptional.
Yeah.
Not good, not average,
Exceptional.
exceptional.
Well, and you don't do anything that's overdone either.
Well, I try to believe I don't. Hopefully that's true.
You're like, but I don't see anyone that like, you're just like, oh my gosh, what the heck?
Well, there's limits to everything.
Yeah.
And,
Do you try to be honest with your patients? Like, let's say I walk in and I tell you I want like double D size boobs. What are you going to tell me?
Well, what I try to do is be realistic
Yeah.
with patients. And I think, probably one of the biggest, I think, challenges as a plastic surgeon is to try to be able to have a patient understand what I can do and what I can't do, so that afterwards, they'll be expecting what the result is.
Yeah.
Right. The times I think that that I've gotten to trouble, so to speak, or had patients that have been disappointed, I don't think is when we reach that communication where, in their mind they thought this was going to happen. In my mind, I thought that was going to happen. So afterwards, we never really had a meeting of the mind. So, during the consultation, that's why it's so important, kind of really to spend some time with the patient to see what their goals are, and to try to let them know really what it is that I can do, and probably just as importantly, what I can't do.
Yeah. To set realistic
expectations. One thing that's kind of really helped with that is we do have a 3D imager.
Okay.
And it's super helpful. You can use it for body and other things, but it's super helpful for noses and for breasts. And when I say that, for the breast, because if you're wanting to have an augmentation or a lift, it will simulate that. And it although not perfect, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
And for noses, it's fantastic because, before this, I could explain to someone what I thought we could do, but, it's a visual field, right? I mean, you got to see it. So I can put the changes in, and, I've been doing this long enough to know that, what I can do on the computer and what I can, actually deliver, in real life. So, I'll put those changes in, and usually we're very, very close to what, what that rendered picture is.
And people can see it.
And people can see it, and then it's the time to say, no, that's not really what I was thinking. And okay, well, great, let's make some alterations here.
Yeah.
Or no, that's I'm on board. That's exactly what I was thinking. So, that's been really helpful in that regards also.
So, do you see a lot of times? Do you get sometimes where you're like, they want to fix so many different things, and you're just like, it's kind of like a body dysmorphia?
Well, I mean, I think over the years I've had people that have had a body dysmorphic syndrome, which is actually a real, diagnosis in the psychiatry world. But I think a lot of times it's people come in with, especially like, let's just say someone who's lost 100 pounds or 150 pounds. That's probably the ones, and they come in and they have sort of a laundry list, and it's like they got 8 procedures. I'm like, okay, we need to stop it at number 4 on session 1, and then on session 2 maybe we can do the rest of them. So. If there is someone, like you mentioned, that may have body dysmorphic syndrome, if you can recognize that patient, it's best not to operate on them, because you'll never make them happy, because unfortunately what they're seeing and what you're seeing is 2 different things. So now, sometimes those patients slip through the cracks, unfortunately. But if that's something that is recognized, and it's a real issue on a certain percentage of patients, it's best to say, I don't think I can help you.
What role do you think social media has in that?
In the regards to unrealistic expectations, I think, I can't say I can quantify that for sure, but just my own personal opinion, I think it does build that up, because as you know, I mean, people take selfies and other pictures, and everything is perfect. Lighting's perfect and makeup's perfect, and oh, this is how everyone looks. It's a perfect world, and in reality, it's not a perfect world.
Yeah.
There's always flaws. There's always imperfections, and so, but in the world of social media, where you can have everything very controlled, it makes it look like it's things are perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have Photoshop and everything.
Yeah, yeah, Photoshop and right.
Everything's like filtered out and stuff.
Right. That's right. All the filters you can use, and you make it look as perfect as possible.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the truth on that.
Yeah.
So what have been like the biggest surgeries that people have been asking for right now?
Right now, like I think we talked about, probably facial procedures. So facelifts have been, very common, and I think a lot of that due to, people sitting in front of these, these cameras that, amplify everything, and they're like, wow, I didn't really, and you see yourself from different angles that that you're not used to seeing yourself at. I see that a lot for facial. Like, wow, I never really noticed how I looked on a lateral. Like, well, that's true, because you don't, ever, when you look in the mirror, it's usually, straight. You don't look in lateral. So that would be one of them. And then the body surgeries. And I think because, again, people have time for the recovery.
Yeah.
So, they'll take a couple days off, and if they're having to work from home, they don't have to say, oh, I can't go to work for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. They're like, no, I can't go to work for 2 days, and then I can still function.
Yeah,
right,
as long as I can be on the laptop.
Right.
That's great. So how long is like a recovery time on like a facelift and all that stuff?
So usually people would take about a week, maybe up to 2 weeks, but more commonly about a week off of work. I mean, this is actually in person, type of thing. So it's about a week. Now, to have really most of the healing done, it's about 6 weeks.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Because it's not a small surgery, is it?
It's not a small surgery, although I don't consider it a huge surgery either. And one thing I didn't mention about that is that, really for almost the whole 19 years I've been in practice, it probably wasn't completely the 19, but we've been doing a lot of the facial procedures in the office under local anesthesia and oral sedation. So, and it started off kind of with a more limited sort of facelift, what we call a mini facelift. And then it's kind of progressed on to, really almost every facial procedure that I can, perform. Not necessarily all at once, but the standard facelifts now we perform in the office probably about 85% of the time. And the 15% of the time that we don't, it's either because someone is, very nervous and they just don't think that they could do well under, a local anesthesia situation, or we're combining it with other procedures that don't lend itself to do in the office, like, they're having something done with the breast, and like, well, I can't do both of those here in the office under local. So, but the facelifts and the facial procedures under local, really, it's a lot of it's been. Kind of patient driven. So, they would, tell me, do I really have to have general anesthesia for this? I don't think I have to,
Yeah.
And knowing that I was already doing it, so it's kind of been an evolution,
Yeah.
To the point where, before I was probably doing 15% in the office, and now I'm doing 15% in the OR and 85% in the office.
Oh, wow.
So,
how do you like doing it here instead of the OR?
I like it to a large extent because, I'm here, and I mean, I control everything here.
Yeah, yeah.
So, the people I'm with, and right down to the sutures I use, everything is controlled. Not to say that when I operate in the OR, it's not, because the people I work with are the people I've worked with for years. It's just it's a little bit different setting, and I think people actually for the after all said and done, prefer it.
Yeah.
Here, and like I say, it was really patient driven, not necessarily pushed by me. It was pushed by them. And then after seeing it's like, really we can effectively do it here and have people comfortable and have the same results that we get in the OR. So why do we need to go to the OR under general anesthesia? Yeah.
And you have it here. Well, I think too, because the office is really nice. Everything's super nice here, and it's very welcoming, and And so when people are getting to surgery, they get nervous about all that
Right.
stuff. So I'm sure it's easier if they're like, okay, I'm going to go to the same office.
Yes.
Not going.
Absolutely.
So
And
it makes it easier
that's for
there.
sure a part of it. Yes.
So what do you notice with different ages, how people request surgeries? Like from ages 20 to 30, what did they like? And what
Yeah.
did 40?
Yeah.
Because I know everyone's different in the
No,
different
absolutely.
ages.
And yeah, no, the age, it definitely influences, usually what the procedure is going to be. Not always, but, in general terms, from about the 20 to probably 35 years old, the breast augmentation, that's going to be probably the number one. And then also liposuction. When you get to, probably about 40, between, let's say 35 to probably 45, then people are usually coming in for tummy tucks and liposuction and, something to do with the breast, the mommy makeovers, because
You've just had kids, yeah.
right, women are done having children, and like, I'm not going to have any more children, so it's time to worry about me and do some stuff for me. And then usually the 50 and over, then that starts to get more to the facial procedures, whether it be the facelift or eyelid surgery. So that's, in general, that's how it shakes out.
Have you guys seen the butt lifts a lot?
Yeah, we do. So when you say butt lift,
Or like, I'm not using it, yeah.
Let's clarify.
Yeah.
So what it actually is it's, most of the time it's people refer to it as the Brazilian buttock lift.
Okay.
Which is technically a little bit of a misnomer, because a Brazilian buttock lift is liposuction, or removal of fat in areas that you don't want it, and placement into an area you do want it, which in this case is the buttocks. So it's not a lift in the traditional sense of plastic surgery, where you're making an incision, you're undermining skin, you're pulling skin up, removing that skin and closing.
Yeah.
It's a lift in the fact that you are adding volume to the buttock, so you get a lift in that regards.
Huh.
So that's what it is. And yeah, we do a fair amount of that too, and it's become it's become a lot more popular. I think I always, well, the story how it goes is, and this was probably 17, 18 years ago. I had a patient of mine, and she's like, I want to have a fuller buttocks. I'm like, yeah, well, and this is when fat transfer was just starting to come onto the scene. Not many people were doing it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I've read about, I've read about, transferring, large amounts of fat into the buttocks. And I said, but I've never done it. She was like, well, I want to do it. I want you to be the first. Okay, all right. So, I did some more reading, and, I talked to some colleagues, and they're like, yeah, there's, some that were doing it actually in Houston. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to do it. So, we did it, and, she was happy, and everything worked out well. And that's kind of how that started off. And then, from there it just, it kind of grew, and as I guess as culturally, I guess it's become more accepted and popular.
Yeah.
The amount of people seeking it out has grown.
Oh, yeah.
Really exponentially.
That's a Kardashian effect.
Yeah, right.
I like they see all them with the full figures, so they're like, yeah.
It's, to a large extent, yeah, you're right. I mean, the celebrities and other people that have, kind of put emphasis on that, influences, what people come in asking for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's what, you see them and you're just like, well, I want that.
Right.
I want a butt like that.
So, but that would be that. Now, there are actually implants to put into the buttocks, like what a breast implant would be. But that's by far less common. The most common way is with
just
fat.
the fat.
Yes.
Huh. That's a good. I didn't even know any of that stuff. So you're really helping me out here. So what's something that a lot of people don't know that you guys offer here?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Probably one of the things that comes to mind is that when we're speaking about augmentation, well, one of the things people like to have augmented is their lips. And most commonly that's done with a filler.
Yeah.
A filler being something like Juvederm or Restylane or one of the commercially available products. And it's great. It works really well. And
yeah.
it's a small procedure because it's an injection and you go, but it's not permanent. So, about every year, people who want to do the lips, they'll come in and have, the lips done. And so at some point, people will be like, hey, is there another way that I can do this
that I
where I
don't
have to come in every year to have it done? And indeed there is. It's actually a small implant. And it's a silicone implant, but unlike a breast silicone implant, it's a solid implant. So there's no, it can't leak. You can cut it in half. It's solid, but it's very soft and it's very flexible. And so you make a little small incision at the corner of the mouth, and you basically thread this implant in, and so you have a permanent, increase in lip size. And the nice thing is that too, if it's somewhere down the line someone wasn't happy, it's easy to remove. I mean, you make that little small incision again, and you remove the implant, and it's over. It's done with. So that's one that.
That's crazy. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, and a lot of people haven't. And when someone comes into me, for example, and wants the lips done, and they've never had a filler before, I usually encourage them to have a filler first to make sure that they're going to like the look before they go to something that would be permanent like that.
Yeah.
But that's one of them.
Wow.
I think another one that comes to mind is a treatment for cellulite.
Ooh, what's this? I need to know this one.
So when I say cellulite, let me also kind of clarify. So cellulite, in my definition, in the plastic surgery world definition, it's actually the skin kind of being pulled down or puckered. Okay. And so you can see that on someone who's overweight. You can see it on someone who is thin. So it's not necessarily so dependent on the amount of percentage of body fat. What it is it's the fibrous attachments that go from the skin to the deeper layer and to the muscle are short, and so it will kind of retract and pucker that skin.
Yeah.
And so the way to treat that, once you know what the problem is, the way to treat that is you have to get in there with a little small blade, and you're cutting right below the skin that's basically incising all those fibrous attachments so the skin is not pulled down. So liposuction doesn't really help true cellulite all that much because you're not getting those attachments. So there is a treatment, it's called Selfina, that's specifically made for cellulite. So if you can identify someone that has true cellulite and not laxity of the skin, then it's a good treatment. And what it is we put in some local anesthesia, and it's like a suction cup that goes on it. And then with after the suction cup is applied, a little small blade is introduced, and it goes right. It's less than a millimeter below the skin, so it's right there, cutting all those little fibrous attachments that are there, and it works great. And that's a procedure we do in the office too, under local anesthesia. So that's another one that people don't.
What's the recovery time on that? I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's usually by a week people can start doing light exercise and build up.
Wow.
It's fairly straightforward.
So how can you tell if someone has that true cellulite to do that?
Well, and that's where the exam part comes in.
Yeah.
So and I've seen probably 50% of the people that come in seeking it, I don't think are good candidates. And so I'm like, no, I don't think it's going to work for you. So it's like any procedure or treatment. You have to kind of separate the people who would actually benefit it from the people who are not going to benefit from it.
Right.
So
I gotcha.
So that would be another one that comes to mind.
Now that's coming to my mind. Thinking of a Christmas gift, Justin.
Yeah.
Well, and then the other thing that you had said is Kybella, you prefer doing the liposuction underneath.
Yeah. So, and I know all the Allergan reps are going to hate me for this, but and I've told them to their face. So the Kybella, it's a chemical cocktail, if you will, and it actually, so you inject it into the fat, and it damages the fat. It actually will kill fat cells. And then your body will slowly, since those fat cells are dead, your body will absorb those fat cells and clears them. And so it's it's kind of a gradual process that happens. However, you have to be a little bit cautious around nerves because what is around the sheaths of nerves is primarily fat. So you can take away the insulation on the sheaths of the nerves, and then the nerve doesn't fire quite right. And so that's not so good. So in my humble opinion, with liposuction, I can do more areas, I can be more aggressive, and I can get a result in one time as opposed to 3 or 4 treatments.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Well, and then you say you blow up with it.
Yeah, again, in my opinion, and of using it, I think people have more swelling, believe it or not, with the Kybella than they do with the liposuction because again, it works with, it's a chemical sort of it's a chemical death of the cells, if you
Yeah.
will. And so that causes a pretty significant amount of inflammation as that happens.
Oh, wow.
Whereas with liposuction, it's a mechanical death.
Yeah, it's like
if
in
you
and
will.
out.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It makes
So,
it pretty simple.
yeah.
What are some of your surgeries that you're known for, your bigger ones?
I would say I do a lot of rhinoplasties.
Yeah.
I do a lot of facelifts. And then, it goes in spurts with the body. I'll do, it's just kind of different times of the year. I'll do bunches of tummy tucks, and then it seems like it slows down, and then, then I do bunches of tummy tucks.
Yeah.
And of course, liposuction. Liposuction's almost universal. I mean, you use it on the face, you use it on the body, you use it like everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah. So that's always been done at some point.
Well, when you do the liposuction treatment, how important is it after that they keep up with a healthy lifestyle? Because can't they gain it all back?
It's a great question. Yes, you can. So when someone goes through puberty, they probably have almost all the fat cells they're ever going to have. It's just like this, you can look at it the analogous to muscle cells. When you go through puberty, you have pretty much all the muscle cells you're going to have. So how does a muscle cell get bigger? Well, it gets bigger by what we call hypertrophy. So when someone works out, it's not like you get 5 times the amount of cells, it's just the cells you have get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
So on a bodybuilder, they don't have 5 times the amount of muscle cells as a normal person has, they just have much bigger cells.
Oh.
So on someone who's overweight, they don't have 5 times the amount of fat cells that a normal person has, they just have bigger cells.
Yeah.
So with liposuction, you go in there and you are actually physically removing fat. So you're extracting the fat. Those cells don't come back. Okay, they're eliminated.
Oh.
However, there's always cells that remain. So if the caloric intake is greater than what you're burning off, the body can only do one thing with that, and that's to store it as fat. So it's going to look for its favorite areas.
Yeah.
And if the favorite areas aren't available, it's going to start going to other areas.
I got
So that's a good question. What I tell everyone is that liposuction, and body surgery, it's not a substitute for diet and exercise. It will give you a giant head start,
Yeah.
for sure. But you have to be able to and be willing to maintain that to get the long-term result.
Have you seen people that it's like that they got the liposuction and then they really haven't changed the lifestyle and then they want it again?
Unfortunately, yes.
And then, so after that point, do you?
Well, we've done, and I've done the liposuction, again on a lot of these people. But I mean, again, I give them the same speech every time.
Yeah.
It's not the cure-all.
You've got to just.
You've got to be able to, you've got to be able to alter lifestyles, or ultimately it's gonna fail.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, what advice, like when you have people that are looking to get a surgery, what advice do you have for anyone that's wanting to get some kind of plastic surgery?
Probably. The advice would be, number one, do your homework.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the procedure, research the procedure, know something about the procedure. And then do your homework when it comes to picking or choosing, who you're going to go see or who you're going to have do the procedure. I mean, there's certain, I would say, I think, absolute qualifiers that you would look for. I mean, if you're looking for plastic surgery, I would look for someone who's a board-certified plastic surgeon.
Yeah.
And why that? Well, that just assures that someone has actually completed a residency in plastic surgery and has actually passed both a written and an oral exam. So, they have what I would say, the minimum requirements to be able to do, the procedure. Now, with that said, I mean, you would probably want to, to see, then of course, the person's reputation and, look at the person's, photo gallery, et cetera. And then when you come in for a consultation, how do you interact with that person?
Yeah.
Because that's important. Because I always look at it as not a short-term relationship, but as a long-term relationship. Because I see patients back years after they've had surgery.
Yeah.
And I mean, I want that to be a long-term relationship, not like, okay, well, you had your surgery and then I've seen you 2 weeks and then goodbye, right off into the sunset, and good luck to you. So those are the kind of I think the key elements that I would tell a patient who's seeking plastic surgery to look for. And then also, I say this, but it's really, I think that's more the plastic surgeon's responsibility, is to set realistic expectations. I mean, the patient will, can come in and, they just oftentimes don't know. They don't know what a procedure can achieve and what it can achieve. And that's our duty, is to be able to set, to set the bar where it should be set.
Yeah.
Right.
What are your feelings to people that go across the border to get like breast augmentation? Because like, let's say I want to get a boob job, and I don't know how much or anything like that, but it's half the price.
Sure.
In Juarez, what do you say to that?
It's not just Juarez, but I mean, it's
or like
other parts of Mexico or anywhere else. So the main problem with that is that, number one, I don't think you really know the qualifications of the person that's doing the procedure, and number two, if it all goes well, then I guess there's no problem, but it always, the things always arise when there is a problem. And then the question is who takes care of the problem? Who fixes the problem? Because specifically when you talk about, let's just say Juarez, because it's just across the border.
Yeah.
So it's in close proximity. A lot of times we see the patients when they have a problem. And then it can be a problem for the patient, because some of the plastic surgeons may say, I didn't do the original surgery, I'm not going to help with the revision of the surgery. I tend to see patients, because I just think it's the right thing to do, and if I can help, I'm willing to help. If I can't, I can't. But that's the problem. Is how do you know who's going to take care of any sort of complications?
Yeah. And
rightfully so, and I've heard it from patients, is that if they do have a problem, if the doctor just thinks he's done with them, he can just say, I'm pretty much I'm pretty much done with you. And there's really no legal recourse you have. I mean, you're talking about a foreign country where you're not a citizen. You don't really, I don't think people realize that, you don't really have any legal recourse.
No. And the thing is too, when you're dealing with your face or you're dealing with those things, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go for the cheapest thing, and that's
well, that's the other part of the equation too. The old adage, and and I think it's really for the most part true. You get what you pay for. Right? I mean, there's a reason that things are cheaper, and there's a reason that things are more expensive. Just in general here, things are more expensive because we all carry medical malpractice insurance. We have to have certain standards. All of that adds to the cost of procedures. So those are just things to consider.
Well, there was this one girl, Laura, I forgot her last. I think it was Avila, that she had died from getting a breast augmentation in Juarez. Do you remember seeing that? It was like
there was one patient, unfortunately, that had died. I think it was from a rhinoplasty, and there probably has been one from breast augmentation too. And I mean, things can go wrong here.
Yeah.
Things can go wrong there. I mean,
it's still a surgery.
It's still a surgery, and there's always real risks of things happening, and I think that's why it's so important to really know the person who's doing the surgery,
right?
And be able to trust that person. Well, number one, first make sure that person's qualified.
Yeah.
Above all, make sure that person is qualified to do the surgery, and then have trust in that person, because again, that's the person it really is the one that's taking care of you, the one that's going to make sure that things don't go wrong with you.
Yeah.
And if they do, is going to have enough knowledge and experience to take care of those problems.
Yeah. That's very, very true. Well, and like one of them, like for example, even breast surgery, because you don't, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a doctor, but like don't you have to take out the implant every 10 years, or how does that work?
Oh, okay. That's a good question.
Because honestly, I was interested in that, and then when I heard that, I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing all that stuff. That's too much.
So there's never been a recommendation by the FDA or by any of the, let's just say, plastic surgery societies saying that you have to remove an implant in 10 years. Now, a lot of times plastic surgeons will say that you should probably think about removing in 10 years, because the longer an implant is in place, or any implantable device, breast, knee, whatever, the greater the chance for failure.
Yeah.
However, if you look at the actual studies, and there's been a lot of studies on breast implants looking at what is the longevity of them. Let's just take the silicone implant and the newer implants. The chance for failure in 10 years is probably about 7%.
Oh, wow.
So that means if everyone came in that had an implant, you would be replacing 93% normal implants. I don't think that's such a wise thing to do.
No.
I think, and I've had plenty of people come in at 10 years.
Yeah, I'm gonna
And
say.
usually we'll get an MRI, we'll make sure that the implant, and if the implant's intact and they're happy, I don't see any particular reason why you have to change it.
Yeah.
So I have removed implants from people that have been in their body for 35 years and have been intact.
Oh, wow.
So, they have a potential to last for many, many, many years. And in fact, the studies have shown that vast majority are going to be intact in 10 years. So I don't really think you have to have them removed every 10 years. You have them removed or changed when there's a problem.
Yeah.
That's when you do it.
Huh.
And that may be 5 years, that may be 30 years.
Yeah.
Right.
You're just like, well, and then you do the appointments and you do all the
Right.
post procedures so that way
And
you
I
don't
see-
have those issues.
Yeah, and I see patients back. I see patients back yearly. The ones that want to come will come, and I have a lot that still come back, 7, 8, 10 years after a breast augmentation, and I check, and if they have any complaints or problems, we can always get an MRI, we can look at the status. If it's a saline implant, it's easy because it will just look like a deflated tire, so you'll know.
You know right away.
You know right away.
So what's the difference between the saline and the
So the difference is, what it's filled with. The shell of the actual implant is essentially the same. A saline implant is filled with water or saline. A gel implant is filled with a silicone gel. Now there is different cohesiveness of that gel, so some of the gel can be thinner, some can be thicker, but it's all silicone gel. The biggest advantage of a silicone gel implant is it tends to look and feel more natural over the years because it's a thicker substance, so it mimics
gotcha.
breast tissue more. Breast tissue is not water, so because it's thicker, it tends to feel more like breast tissue. That's most evident on someone who's very thin.
yeah.
So if you have someone who's real thin, who's 110 pounds and 5'2", they'll probably get the most benefit from a silicone implant because there's less chance of wrinkling and rippling, and they don't have a lot of coverage over it, so it's going to tend to feel better. You have someone that comes in that's a large B or a C and wants to go bigger. Honestly, you probably can't tell a whole lot of difference between a silicone and a saline implant.
Wow.
So that's the advantage of the silicone implant. The disadvantage of a silicone implant is if it leaks, it's most often what we call a silent leak. Since your body can't absorb the silicone, it stays right there. So it may look and feel very similar to what it did before. The only real way to, or the best way to tell if there's a leak is to get an MRI. Ultrasound can be helpful, and sometimes it can detect a leak, but an MRI is the best way.
To find out.
Yeah, because you cannot tell by a physical exam whether it's leaked or not.
Huh.
With a saline, the opposite is true in the fact that if it leaks, because it's saline, your body does absorb it, so it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So the patient will come to me and go, "Hey, this breast is half the size of this breast. I think there's a problem."
Yeah.
It's very.
You're like, yeah,
There's
there is.
there's no real dilemma. He's like, yeah, you have a leak. Let's change it.
Let's fix it.
So that in a nutshell is the differences between the two.
So what are the biggest misconceptions about plastic surgery? And being a plastic surgeon?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that, a surgery is a permanent fix for something. And when I say that's a misconception, let's just say, for example, let's use a breast implant because the breast implant, even in 10 years later, 20 years later, it's still there. But the difference is that a person has continued to age. So any surgery we do doesn't stop the aging process.
Right.
And so, at some point, it's not going to look as good as what it originally, did. And so that's kind of one of the big misconceptions is that, if I have this done, I'll never, it's taken care of forever. And I wish that was the case. And it usually lasts for many, many years, but it's not a permanent fix.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and like you said, everything changes as you get older.
Everything changes as we get older. So that's probably the biggest misconception. And it goes along still with like the body surgery where, I don't think this is the biggest misconception, but it's that's one of the common misconceptions. Again, if I have liposuction, I don't have to worry about ever gaining the fat back. Not true. Not true.
Not true.
Not true. Not true.
And how about a misconception about being a plastic surgeon?
So one of the well, let me go one more time about the misconceptions too that it just made me think of, is that if a plastic surgeon makes an incision and closes it, there's not going to be a scar. Always a scar.
Always.
The body heals with a scar. There's no, it's the end process of wound healing is a scar. Now, if you operate on a child in utero, which some surgeons have done for tumors, they're born without a scar.
Yeah.
I mean, literally without a
That's
scar.
crazy.
Yeah, but that's because there's different hormones and other sorts of things that are available in utero that once we're born, that those are gone. So there's always a scar. The difference is I'd like to think in the world of plastic surgery, we try to make the best scar and we try to hide the scar as best as possible.
I gotcha.
But scar, always a scar.
I didn't know that. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, always a scar.
And then for a plastic surgeon, what's?
I think for a plastic surgeon, I think everyone thinks it's just kind of a world of glamour and and glitz, and it's all you're seeing all Hollywood type and what have you, and that's I think that's not true.
Yeah.
In my practice in general, I see mostly just common, ordinary people.
Yeah.
That that are really wanting common, ordinary type of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not all glamour and glitz. I mean, some of the stuff is is done for reconstructive purposes, and it's it's done for functional purposes, and that's okay too. That's the whole other side of it.
Oh yeah, for
Right.
sure.
Right.
For sure.
So
So what's something that a lot of people don't know about you personally?
something I'm willing to share.
Yeah. Or you can feed me a little bit that people don't know that you're like, I'll just get it out there.
So people often ask, well, what's your hobby? Well, I don't unfortunately have a lot of time for hobbies.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I've done is I've coached youth basketball for many years now.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that's kind of my hobby.
Yeah.
So when I'm not here, oftentimes we're and the whole COVID thing is kind of put a wrench in that. But in normal situations, that's what I do. And then also I like old cars, classic cars, specifically Mustangs.
Huh.
So
what got you into the youth basketball?
well, my sons, of course, because I've coached my sons, and it's I wouldn't say it's a way that I'm forced to be with them,
Yeah.
but in a way I'm forced to be with them.
Yeah.
So it's something that they've enjoyed and I've enjoyed, and we built teams that have had their friends on them, so it's competitive, but it's hopefully fun
Yeah.
as well.
Well, and it builds memories with
and
Dad.
builds memories, and I've had another coach who's become a good friend of mine, and him and I have been doing it for years together. So
Yeah.
it's been fun.
So how do you balance like the surgery and home life and everything?
Yeah, it can it can get tough at times.
Because if people don't know, you have 4 kids, right?
5.
5? Oh, 5.
Five,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. So I have 2, and just within just 2 automatically is all crazy.
Now the youngest are about to turn 14, so they're it's
different.
changed. The
Yeah.
dynamics have changed a lot. So I don't know. It's tough. I don't know if there's any
You're like,
one-
there's no easy way of saying
there's
that.
only one right answer for it. Yeah. It's at times it gets harder as the busier I am here. Sometimes I'm it's 12-hour days. And I get home and you get to see them for just a little bit and that's it. And so luckily for myself, and the field that I'm in, usually the weekends are open, so I'm not having to take call and do things on the weekend. So it does give me that time.
That
So,
quality of time.
right.
And I'm sure your wife does a lot too.
Yeah, she does a lot.
Well,
Absolutely.
It's always good to have that balance that you have her there to help you out there with the kids and everything too.
Of course.
Because how old are your kids?
20 to 14.
Oh my gosh.
So, when I say 20 to 13, almost 14.
Yeah.
So.
Well, then you're gonna have them all in college and everything.
Yeah, that's when the pain really starts.
That's when you're like, come on, we gotta get more lifts in here.
That's when the financial pain really starts.
So are you wanting them to go Texas Tech since you were there, or?
No, not necessarily.
No.
I mean, really wherever. I think, whatever college, every college probably has its own little identity and its own kind of personality, and wherever they feel like they can fit in.
Yeah.
I just have one requirement, do well.
Yeah, you're like, just do. Are any of them wanting to do?
Don't fit in too well, and and party for 4 years.
Well, but you know what? I told my parents it helped me with my social skills. I knew the parties and I knew how to get everyone
Right.
together. So.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah, I mean, these get degrees. I got it done in 4 years. It just might have not been the way they wanted me to do it.
Right.
What? So have any of your kids wanted to do like any type of medicine or surgery?
So far, no.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
None
but
of them?
believe it or not, I don't know. Maybe they've gotten too much exposure to this. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. So when I grew up, I never really had exposure to medicine because my father wasn't a doctor, and none of my uncles were doctors or aunts, or so I didn't really know much about it.
Yeah.
And maybe that was good. I don't know.
You're like, ignorance is bliss.
Right. Sometimes ignorance is bliss. But maybe one may have an interest in it, and it's something that it's kind of such a long road, and kind of takes it takes dedication and just a lot of delayed gratification that if you don't want to do it, you'll be miserable.
Really?
Yeah. So you gotta if you really want to do it, that's great. Do it. If you're doing it for dad, don't do it.
No.
You'll be miserable.
You're like, don't do it. Well, because it's a long.
Yeah, it's a long haul. So like for myself, people often ask so the time I graduated from high school till the time I was actually physically ready to start my private practice is 16 years.
Oh, Jesus.
So almost as long as as I was alive, and it took that length of time too to get to this point.
Oh my gosh.
So
what were the pros and cons with that? Like, were you just like ready to get out when you were, or did you think you were going to be making millions?
And I think I don't think, at least me personally, I didn't know what I would make, and and I never went into plastic surgery because I thought it paid better than this field or that field.
Yeah.
I just went into it because it's what I liked.
Yeah.
What I truly, that's what interested me, and I'm glad I did it, and because any field you go into it and you're not happy with what you do, you're miserable.
Yeah.
I mean, even if the pay is less, I mean, there's
just
something
like,
said about waking up. Really, I mean, sometimes I get to work and I'm like, gosh, I'm glad I do what I do.
Yeah.
I love my field. I don't, think, man, counting down the days, when's retirement? How quickly can I, stop doing this?
Yeah.
For me, it's kind of like, how long can I still do this?
So what would advice be for anyone looking to get into the plastic surgery field?
Well, I would say, just in medicine, in general, it's just, and it's, from what I hear, and I've talked to colleagues and, professors at the universities, it's probably much more competitive than when I was applying, and sometimes parents will say, my kid wants to do it, and I just tell them, look, what college should he go to or she go to? I'm like, go to the college that they can do the best at, because you gotta have good grades. You don't have those, and you don't have a decent MCAT score, you're not getting in. It's just there's just too many other people applying that have those. So you just gotta do it. You gotta make up your mind and say, I'm going to sacrifice not going to this party and that party so I can get an A in that class. I mean, just unfortunately, it's just the way it is.
Well, because you're doing it for so long,
Right.
and then the amount of student loans and stuff too,
Right.
and everything. I can't even imagine being.
And then when you get into residency, it's a lot better because that's basically kind of on-the-job training.
Yeah.
So it becomes. I always thought that was so much better, even though, that took 7 years. It was, it was fun. It was interesting,
Because you were learning a bunch of different things.
Right.
Were you in New Orleans, or I mean?
I was in New Orleans.
Okay.
I was at Tulane in New Orleans.
Gosh.
So there's both Tulane and LSU. I was at Tulane.
So did you do the Mardi Gras and everything, or not really?
Every year.
I was like, I love it. I love it. So did you like doing your residency and everything out there?
Mm-hmm. New Orleans is, it's almost unlike any city in the United States. It's a very, it's a very different city.
It is. It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun.
I had a lot of fun out there when I had gone there like years ago. It was definitely a very fun party town. That's what.
It's a.
So it was perfect for your residency years.
What are they? I always thought they look for an excuse to have a party or a celebration, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the fun part about it.
Yeah.
So do you still talk to the people that you were in residency with?
Several I do, yeah. I mean, I've kept in contact with, a handful of people. And a couple of them are still in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Have stayed there ever since, and so it's nice because I get to talk to them and see, how's it going there and everything. So, but yeah.
And and I think that's a good thing you bring to the table too. You're like, if you're getting into medicine because you think you're going to make all this money and everything, you have to have realistic expectations on it.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, physicians are still pretty well paid, across the board, and that obviously depends on the region of the country you're into. That will, that kind of influence that. But if you don't like it, you'll be miserable doing it.
Yeah.
So it's just such a long road to get there that you gotta really be convinced that that's
it's like your
that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would be the best advice. And I've seen, we've had students come and follow us around and do things, and and you can sort of see that some are interested and some are half interested. And so, it's you got to be pretty convinced that that's it.
Well, for 16 years, that's a long
Right.
time.
It's a commitment. It's a serious commitment. So that's I mean, with a lot of my other friends, they were already out in industry making salaries, and I'm still,
Yeah.
I'm still in my third year of residency, So,
Oh my gosh.
it's, and in that aspect, you kind of start a lot farther behind,
Than
other people because, they've been out in the, the workforce and, corporate America or starting their businesses. And so, they've already been in the game for, a lot longer.
Yeah.
Right.
So when did you meet your wife during that time?
Well, we had known each other before, and we got married. We got married, and then 2 weeks later, we moved to New Orleans.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah.
And so she understood like all the craziness with the residency hours and stuff.
Yeah, I think so. And then, she was a school teacher at the time, so she stayed pretty busy, and we didn't have any kids, so she was busy, I was busy. It worked out.
Yeah. You're like,
Right.
well, I feel like until you have kids, then it changes like the whole dynamic.
Yes. yes.
Because when it's just the two of you, it's like
It's a lot easier.
it's a lot easier.
Of course. You
So-
you know that.
Oh yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth. I think that they always keep life interesting with
Yeah.
all the most random things that pop up.
Right.
So how have you guys been anywhere on vacation, family vacation, right now with everything?
It's been a little tough now, but in May we did go to Florida they went for a week. I went for 3 days.
Oh,
and it was fun. It
Yeah.
was the Panhandle, Florida.
Okay.
Destin.
I've never been. I've heard it's really nice out there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The beaches are nice, and the water is warm, and it's
Oh,
nice.
see, I like that because California, it's all cold.
It's cold.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm like, I don't like to. I'm like, it's nice to look at, but I don't want to stick my feet in anything there.
It's on the Gulf. It's warm.
So, do you have any specials that are going on in September or October right now, or anything?
Yeah, actually, for September and October, one of the specials, which is one of the more popular ones, is is you buy a filler and you get the second one at half price. And
Okay.
that's one of the more popular ones that people like. So
So to get ready for the holidays too.
get ready for the holidays.
Yeah, you got to look good.
You know, easy treatment.
Hey, you're in and out.
In and out.
And any other advice you want to give to anyone looking at surgeries or any type of fillers, Botox, plastic surgeries, or anything?
No, just like what we talked about. Just, I mean, I think, again, just to hit home, know who you're going to, know what the qualifications of the people that you're going to, and know their reputation
Yeah.
too. I mean, those are I think those are important, important steps. It's just like probably when you're going to have, a house built. Do you just pick anybody, or you want to try to find someone who you think is going to be, the best person?
Yeah.
It's the it's the same sort of thing, and us, unlike other specialties, sometimes you'll just go to a physician because that's who's on your insurance plan.
Yeah.
With a lot of what we do, well, you can go to myself, or you can go to someone down the street or across town, and so you have the option to go to to whoever you'd like to go to. So again, it's money, hard-earned money. Make sure you spend it wisely.
Yeah, that's the truth. You're like, that's the truth. Well, thank you so much for taking your time to be
You're welcome.
on the show, and I appreciate it. Cheers,
It
doctor.
was fun. Yeah.
Thank you.